All, this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So this is the favorite part of the talks. Today is actually 99th uh, random chit chats. We had been doing these before. Do you know that we are more than 600 topics now? So tomorrow will be the 100th. So tomorrow morning we'll have Dr. Tess Laurie with us. I'm hoping that tomorrow evening, maybe we just do a chit chat and then do a Zoom as well, or maybe a topic plus chit chat. Depends. If there is a burning question, then maybe a separate topic as well. But thank you very much for hanging out with me for so long. It has been so much fun. The only one reason, if at all, I missed tomorrow is that my son's second Moderna vaccine dose is tomorrow at, I believe, 2:30 or so, and I would take him there by myself. And I'm sure that when he'll come back. Last time after the first dose, he had no effect at all. So he may have side effects when he comes back, and if that is the case, I may be attending him and may have to skip the talk tomorrow. Otherwise, tomorrow at the same time, we'll have a chit chat as well. So with this, how is everyone doing? How was the long weekend? I loved it. I did so many paintings over the long weekend. I think you can tell by now, I love poetry, music, uh, uh, paintings, and so on. Pasi says, Dr. Bean, the living Q&A, best on YouTube as answers to questions given fastest learning, are interactive, doctor. Thank you very much, Pasi. And thank you very much for seeing you. You had a little window of time when you were absent. So thank you very much for being here. Jana, how are you doing? Jana, I would see if, so of course, in the morning, we'll have Dr. Tess Laurie. In the second part, I'll see how my son's vaccination goes. I may have to take the day off. And how are you doing? How is your health? Oh, so your answer is above here. I'm alive. I survived my explant over 5 hours, 2 labs back and negative, still waiting on cancer. Hopefully you will be fine. Praying for your health and full recovery. Arun, hello. How are you doing? Carlos, hello. DDS says, are percentages of long haulers increasing, decreasing with the variants? So DDS, this is a data that I do not have. That are percentages related to the variant increasing or not? But I'm very concerned that percentages of long haulers generally are increasing because of the infection and because of vaccine as well. And some of the long haulers situations are more refractory, as we say in medicine, that is, they are not responding to medicines. And that worries me, especially when it is after a vaccine that they were a good citizen. They said, I'm going to protect myself and the people around me, so I'm going to go get a vaccine. And then they don't deserve to have these long haul like symptoms. And youngsters, and it's just sad. So I'm seeing the number increasing, which I think is going to happen if we consider that after vaccine, some people are going to develop it, or after infection, some people are going to develop it. And those cohorts are increasing, they're not reducing. I hope Bonk Bonk is okay. I heard from Texas that he has developed the symptoms of COVID once more. So he had the infection last year. He became a long hauler, and now he's getting the infection again. I hope it is something else. But Joy Fisher says, finally, joyful being here before Q&A started. Welcome, Joy. Doug, hello, how are you? Shri, hello. DDS, hello. Dr. Z, hello. That's a good question. Good comment. Thank you. Carolyn, hello. Michelle, hello. Skyfrog, hello. Texas, what's going on with the old Texas woman in needs of capital letters? What's going on there? I saw this capital letter thingy before too. Jody, Okay, so Nate has a question. What can you do to calm the mast cell activation syndrome at home without prescription, going through the post-vaccine long haul recovery program now? So, diet. So, mast cells are pretty sensitive, and they are sensitive to mechanical issues, to thermal issues, to chemical imbalances, and so on. For example, taking a shower in some people can create hives, or mast cell can degranulate. Changing the temperature, for example, I actually sometimes get this, that if I go and sit down in the car in the hot weather and then come back in the air conditioning, I can start sniffling. So that is a temperature related change, and degranulation. Then, of course, we know allergens can cause them to degranulate. So the things to do is, number one, to figure out what things trigger them. And if they're already triggered, let's say you're in a long haul, then see what things relax them. For example, is it a consistency in temperature? Do you get a higher, more intense symptom set after taking a shower, for example, or after going out and coming back? Does it happen with more stress? Stress can actually aggravate them as well. They are almost like little cats sitting in our body and just behaving or misbehaving. So stress. And then reduce the histamine diets, for example, eggplants or tomatoes and other such things. You can Google it to see what are the histamine diets, and reduce them. So you could do some of those things. Do some yoga or light exercises, or the ways to make yourself relaxed and happy, because that would reduce the stress hormones and increase the action of natural killer cells, which would help balance out the system as well. Colin Hummel says antihistamines, of course. So I was responding in this way, that you said the question that, let's say, without anything else. So that was just generally. So Vishav Deep says, sir, your opinion on workout for youngsters after vaccine. So give it a few weeks after the vaccine. I do not want, considering that vaccines spike protein can be eaten up by monocyte, and it can stick in there as well. That means just do not activate the monocytes too much, and exercise activates the monocytes. So Eileen says, good evening, Dr. Bean. Did you hear about the 85 Tel Aviv high school vaccinated students who got COVID from a vaccinated student who contracted from a vaccinated relative? Mainstream is not reporting. So no, I have not. It will be interesting. Any way to see a link? So huge stress can flare it. Also the OTC antihistamine H1 and H2, yes. And Denise, you are a master of mast cell modulations, right? Oliver says, autoimmune thyroid disease, is Pfizer dangerous because heart inflammation as a side effect, and autoimmune disease has already whole body inflammation? So whenever I speak about the autoimmune diseases that are causing inflammatory state, I always say that if you're taking medicines to bring it down to the normal, that means the system is behaving normally. And if you continue to take those medicines, do not skip them for vaccine, then you are behaving normally. Now, the heart inflammation, that is seen more in the younger men. So if you are in that category and it is messenger RNA based vaccines, then you should be careful there as well. Texas says, come on, Dr. Bean, mast cells are just plain kra. Yes, they are. They're just so weird. Of course, they're nice as well. Jenna says, good night all. Good night, Jenna. Take rest. Jen says, these COVID lectures really helped my family when we all got COVID back in November. Thanks to you, I knew what to have on hand. Our symptoms were all mild. Thank you, Dr. B. You're very welcome. Good to know that you were all safe and happy and healthy. And talking about safe and happy and healthy, so UK is fully opening on 19th July. And folks have been saying that, hey, there are lots of more variants in Israel and other places. These places are given as an example for Israel or UK or US to prove that there are vaccines there. And if there are variants there, then maybe vaccines have something to do with that. It is interesting that UK is opening. I would love to look at UK's cases. Let's look at it together. So if I go here and I go to Worldometer and UK. So look at the new cases. So we started monitoring them or started looking at them somewhere over here when they were 2000, and now they are daily 27. So almost 12 times higher. However, look at the number of deaths. And it is a good thing, and I do not wish these to be higher. So number of deaths are not increasing just as they increase with the other variants. So there are two things to look at. One is the vaccination, and I feel that number one, people who are vaccinated, number two, people who have become infected and recovered, and number three, those who infected and recovered and were asymptomatic. They don't even know that we were infected and recovered. All of them collectively make a herd that is resistant to the variants or other SARS-CoV-2s, whichever SARS-CoV-2s, and resistant especially towards the severe cases. So if it becomes a nuisance and if it becomes a common cold-like botheration, then so be it. As long as it doesn't cause long haul and as long as it doesn't cause death in ICU and tissue damages, so be it. We have other human coronaviruses as well. To me, it seems like it is moving in that direction. I know that there are folks who continue to think that we're going to have a variant very soon that is going to break through the whole immunity, may that be from natural infection or vaccination, and we'll have another pandemic at our hand. Maybe I just have a prayer in my heart that that doesn't happen. And because of that, I keep looking at the silver linings instead of we are in trouble now and we are in trouble now. So this is a good news. If you follow a similar wave before, so let's say this is 26,000, July 2. And if I go here somewhere for 26,000, so let's say December 10, December 18. So about 3-4 weeks after that in UK, the death rate should correspond to that time. So if you go to January, these times of deaths were because of that December rise. You are not seeing that kind of a rise here in deaths with this increased spike. And touch wood, I don't want to jinx it. This is a good news, and I wish that it stays that way. Israel. So Israel's cases. So again, I do not know if Israel has actually stopped sending in the cases. So 496. So they went from no cases to 200, 100, 200, and then 400. So they are doubling. And number of deaths are not really corresponding. And there can be, once again, two reasons. Number one, the folks who are getting the infection now are mostly youngsters. And number two, and so youngsters handle it better. And number two, folks who are getting it and they are vaccinated or had been infected before and protected, they are at least protected from severe outcomes. So again, Israel is doing good as well. How is India doing? Because India is, of course, we all know Delta originated or was found there for the first time. So if Delta was that dangerous, India was the best country for it to kind of run along or run around, because India is a very large country from population point of view, and they're dense as the population is dense as well. So they could have been giving that variant to each other. And if the variant was more lethal and it was more infective, which it is more infective, I do not know if it is more lethal, or I do not believe it is more lethal. Let me say it this way. Look at the numbers here. This is in presence of the Delta. And same is the case with the deaths as well. For me, these are silver linings. For me, these are, and again, India has nothing to do with the vaccine. They have a very tiny proportion of people who are vaccinated. So this is ivermectin, this is social distancing, this is behavioral changes. And this may be the virus becoming less lethal as well. So while I was talking, how are things here? John Snyder says, look at the numbers of Nevada, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi. Cases are rising and are as high as late July in some states. So yes, a fifth wave. So if I go to US, so let's see in general. In general, cases are declining. Overall, for US, I do not see a fifth wave. This was the first one, this was the second one, third big one, fourth smaller one, and now maybe a tiny little wave over here. We'll see. I do not wish it to become larger like others. Why would I want to have anyone be sick with it? But if how is the death toll continues to reduce, so it is fine. We are going downwards. Total cases 4.8 million. And we had the Lambda as well since January. So John, this did not worry me too much. Bonk Bonk, hello, welcome. So you worried us. Texas told me that you had the symptoms again. I hope you're doing well. So Moorhouse says, in April, Bean said they'd be gone in a couple of months. So I remember saying it. So April, May, June, now we are in July. So hopefully we are at the end of it. For the first time, what makes me happy is, especially for youngsters, that they're getting back engaged and they are getting back to work or their activities. Because it was a hard time for all of us, but for youngsters even more, because they are used to meeting and greeting and talking and having fun and going to places, and they were stuck. So when I go to local Starbucks and I see that they're sitting outside and not wearing masks and talking and chatting and having fun, I love it. Angelina says, touch wood. I knock on wood too. Yes, I do that all the time. Although some of my cool bean friends become very upset that why do I touch wood and why can't I do something else? It's an expression and it's a prayer. So whichever way one want a prayer. And Gregory says, isolation is bad for the immune system. Yes, because it causes stress and that causes the reduction in the immune system function. Liza says, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Bean. I took 25 milligrams of fluvoxamine and became very dizzy and the inside of my head felt like it was on fire. 25. Could this have happened because dose was too low? I'm supposed to go. So ideally, 50 milligram once or twice a day. But if you got this, I would actually reduce the dose. Low dose should not do this. I would reduce the dose to even half of this. Abhinav says, did you get a chance to review Novavax data, phase 3 clinical trial release in New England Medical Journal, 30th June? Not at all. I know I talked about Novavax, but I did not look at the data. I was actually waiting for that. So thank you very much for informing me. Let me just, let me add that to my list. Look, the list is by the cool beans. So Novavax trial data, published on June 30th. So I'll do that. Colin Hamill says, does testing positive count as... So nowadays, whenever I leave the screen up, I remember Doug saying once that I would wish Dr. Bean's, paraphrasing, would not keep the screen shared. So Doug, look at this. I take feedback. Colin Hamill says, does testing positive count as a case, or when it adversely affect you to a point of needing medical attention becomes a case? I meant at least on these statistics. So here the testing positive is a case. At the same time, for me, I have always kept an eye on the hospitalization and deaths, and more importantly on the deaths, because that is something that cannot be faked. So that is a number, other than if people do not report it, or the hospitals or authorities. Death is a more accurate number to see what is going on in the society. Testing can be increased or reduced. The test kits can be good or bad, and so on. Rondon says, is there any study of virus shedding of vaccinated people asymptomatic? So there was a preliminary study by Pfizer from Israel that showed that the shedding of the virus reduces. What I do not remember off the top of my head, was it reduced to 76% or by 76%? But I remember that 76% was the name, so maybe by 76%. So there is one study, but not many. James Smith says, question, since there may be issues with spike vaccine, may not target the N protein, why not target the N protein? Would it be better or worse with variants? Maybe less side effects and no spikes in monocyte concerns. Thank you for your insights. That's a very good point. So considering that S1 pieces are ending up in monocytes, and monocytes are not able to digest them correctly, and then they get mad and cause long haul. If that is just one piece. There are many other studies as well that are showing the possibility of long haul by other pathologies. And I was actually going to discuss those today as well. So lambda became an important topic to cover. So considering they said there are other pathologies too. If we consider monocyte for the time being, so that then yes, it is important to figure out vaccines that may not produce spike proteins, but as you said, maybe antibodies against N or M or other components. And this is what makes me kind of wonder, this coronavac is inactivated virus. So that offers a bunch of proteins from the virus, and the efficacy was low. It may have been something to do with the construction of the vaccine itself. Christine is talking about pension. Morehouse says cases are way down in areas that have vaccinated. Hospitals are emptying in vaccinated areas as well. And that is true. Many of my friends say we have no SARS-CoV-2 patients. We are closing down our special unit. So Morehouse, you're correct. Society is actually returning towards normal. This is a difficult question. Jamile Zal says, would you recommend Pfizer for a 13-year-old girl? Very difficult question for me. I have always tried to avoid it. If I had my children at that age, I would try to avoid it. That is me. Does that mean I do not recommend it? It depends upon the child's comorbidities, one, and number two, there is a risk in here of not getting vaccinated, and there is a risk with vaccination too. And that is what I cannot, in all honesty, I cannot talk about it. For example, if I say don't get vaccinated, and then they get infection and they cannot handle it, imagine the burden I would feel. I don't think it will be an easy thing for me. Similarly, let's say I say they get the vaccination, and then they develop cardiac condition or they develop long haul at that age. Imagine the burden on me. So because of that, I have been very careful for this cohort. I would tell you, when I speak with my family, with my friends, I say to them was, is that I do not believe at this age, younger age, we should vaccinate unless there is a reason, because of comorbidities or because of other um, exposures that may be. Cheryl says, I've heard that vaccinating during pandemic is the wrong timing, especially with an EUA vaccine. So EUA, I do not know why people just continue to stay hung on the EUA. Emergency use authorization simply means that they have said, yes, go ahead, do it. We understand that the data that you've provided is sufficient for us to say, go ahead and do this. Approvals can come in later because approvals would need more data. And look, these vaccines are now given a lot. So EUA is not a big deal, at least not for me. For those for whom it matters, they're just hung on it and say EUA is a reason that this is actually a useless product or a dangerous product, and that is why they're saying EUA. I think EUA is more of a bureaucracy problem than the issue with the vaccine. Having said that, the first part, vaccination during pandemic, this was a message popularized by Geared. I don't agree with this message. Michelle says, do the vaccines affect kidney and prostate? My dad is hospitalized and major issues since shot. So not directly, but vaccines could cause side effects that would in turn cause bodies responses or bodies. For example, in Netherlands, when the vaccines caused the diarrheas and nausea, vomiting, it caused enough stress in the body that people actually died with that. So vaccine directly does not affect the kidneys or prostate, but it can tip the balance of the system. Zen Solo says, what's your take on new drug by Roche approved by WHO against COVID? Is ivermectin being suppressed because it's less costly? So I do not know about the new drug by Roche. I know that molnupiravir by Merck, I believe. But yeah, that is a standard, that is a known thing now, that ivermectin is not given a chance because it's nobody's baby. Nobody's going to earn from this. The huge moral bankruptcy is to not care for people. And I know that some people who would listen to this, they would then tweet at me and say, how can you prove that ivermectin works and you guys are selling snake oil and all that? Look, even if ivermectin is a placebo, it still is a very safe drug. So what is it with folks to be so adamantly against the ivermectin? I have not seen them so vigorously against Tylenol. Tylenol is actually more dangerous than ivermectin. And people just keep saying it is unsafe. What unsafe? What is it that you've seen with ivermectin that makes it unsafe? So fine, let's say it is unsafe. And let's say it is not useful. Let those people who think it is useful, let them have it. James Smith says, would the potential for clotting issues exist in the nasal spray version of AstraZeneca or other adenovirus vector-based sprays? Would it be a lower, higher, or same rate? So the clotting issue is because of the antibodies produced, and then they go and interact with the platelets or platelet factor 4. I do not agree with the clotting because of the injection in the vein. And whoever is pushing that is incorrect, because the study that we discussed as well, number one, that study was in mice, and number two, why mice is something that is not correct in this case. Their platelets behavior is different. Their platelets do not have Fc gamma receptor, so these platelets do not get antibodies attached on them, so they cannot behave with how antibody attachment would work on them. Number one. Number two, they said that, hey, we saw the platelets breaking down in the spleen, but platelet clumps could be broken down in the spleen if they were already clotting, and those clotted clumps went in the spleen and got captured by the macrophages over there. So that also is not a great example of saying this is what is happening because of intravenous. And then There was a cool bean who said this, and I really liked that point. And tell me, what do you think about it? They said, if it is because of intravenous, then why is it more after the first shot and not after the second shot? Is this that the nurses actually know that these persons have their first shots and then they are less careful compared to the second shot? Why is it more in women under 50 than men? Is it that nurses are biased to say, if it is a woman, I'm going to try to hurt her by giving it in her vein? And really, looking at the vein, it is very difficult to find veins generally. So I know that nurses are quite, what is that, trained, and they can find back. So we have to have a vein here. Here, how could you just find a vein to directly stick the needle in it? Then, if it is the case that the vein is the issue, then first injection, second injection, incidence should be same. Men, women, incidence should be the same. Other vaccines, these vaccines, adenovirus, incidence should be the same. Children and adults, incidence should be the same. And you don't see them. So going back to your question here, would the potential for clotting, so it is not related to veins, it is related to antibody. That means antibody potential still exists. This is important to note, that when we give an infection on the respiratory surface, then body mostly tries to produce IgAs because it knows that the infection occurred on the respiratory surface, and the cells that are near the mucous membranes, they're inclined more towards IgAs. That would mean less production of IgGs and IgMs and relatively less systemic effects. But still they will be. If there is mimicry going on, or if there is antibodies binding with the platelets or factor fours, that would still happen, but maybe to a smaller quantity. That means more easy to manage. This is my hypothesis. I may be wrong. Blanca Rodriguez says, do you know what vaccine antibody quantity is needed to be considered protected? No. Normally what happens is, if you get a test, the test itself says that, hey, above this threshold is protection, below that is not, and below and at the threshold is not. So it really depends to get a test, and the test would tell you the threshold. Vincent says, Dr. Bean, I'm signed up for my Pfizer vaccine next week. Only Pfizer and Moderna offered here. 25-year-old male. Do you think it should be avoided given the heart risk? So you know that it is messenger RNA-based vaccines are causing this more in younger males. Having said that, my own son, who's 23, would have his second dose tomorrow from Moderna. So I did not have him skip. Although tomorrow, again, not an advice for anyone, I am going to start him on antihistamines, anti-allergies, anti-inflammatories, ivermectin, and I'm going to continue that for next few weeks. So CJ says, last week you stated, so what if 1 million spikes move through body? Patterson's research you shares says monocyte recycle same S1. Please clarify. So the thing is this, it is not about the free spike protein. The spike protein doesn't have to be free to end up in a monocyte. Monocyte is going to eat up the cell that is showing the spike protein, or the spike protein that would come out of a broken cell, or the spike protein that is being exhibited, or the pieces that are exhibited on a cell, and then macrophages and monocytes are going to remove that debris. So monocyte is going to end up with the spike protein in it. And it is also possible that the monocyte picks up the vaccine itself and processes the spike proteins and tries to break them down, and then is not able to break down S1. So S1 piece will not end up in monocyte because monocyte found it on the way. It would be just like other cells would get the spikes. That is how they would get it too. So I don't see there is a difference in what I'm saying, and meaning if the spike is, let's say 1 million spike in the blood, That is not what means that it must get into the monocyte as well. Spike is going to get into the monocyte from here as well. Okay, so Skyfrog says, "Do I hear 76? What's going on?" Um, Abhinav has a number of questions, so let's see. Abhinav, are you spamming in regards to comparing effect of peripheral cytokines causing ear and balance issues between various vaccines? What exact data information one should look for when comparing AstraZeneca or messenger RNA or Novavax? So, Abhinav, this is still an area where we have no idea what causes tinnitus or what causes the ear imbalance. We know that how imbalance occurs or what is the role of ear, but why does the infection or the vaccine cause this? Is it the antibodies? Is it the cytokines? Is it the inflammation? Is it the monocytes at the junction of the blood vessels causing the congestion to occur in the brain, and it is a result of congestion? This is not known. I would suspect it is congestion more than the direct damage to the ear, considering that majority of the people recover. Now, can it be a permanent damage in some? Maybe. So Sarah says, Dr. Bean, you and Dr. Corey are the few folks who have acknowledged our post-vaccine issues. Absolutely. And this is, I think, an incorrect position on doctors to simply say it is in your head. This young woman that I am managing, she is 70-80% better. She said that she went to her doctor and doctor said it's all in your head. So I think it's all in your head is when the doctor doesn't know themselves that what is going on. Trevor says, I just got second Pfizer. What symptoms should I watch for myocarditis? Chest pain. Most important, chest pain and continuous. MSNBC says, do you know doctors who saw patients in person and were exposed to COVID-19 while using only ivermectin? I'm thinking of starting ivermectin and reassurance is a good thing. Many of the doctors, for example, I don't want to take the names, but yes, many have been using ivermectin prophylactically and have been fine. TK2 Max says, can you talk about the vaccine deaths in the USA and other countries around the world? TK, a few days ago, I did 2 or 3 discussions. One was the VERSE vaccine after effects reporting system, the deaths reported in there. Second one was the number of deaths in the UK, then deaths in 50 plus in UK. I admire UK that they are much better than US in collecting and presenting data in a timely fashion. US is just like, oh well, it's happening. UK actually puts it together, composes it, puts it out, discusses it. So I like UK's data more. Principe says, how do you think soaked fenugreek seeds taken along with water help to stop virus replication? Docking value? No idea. I have no idea. I have to look up. Cheryl, thank you very much for the super sticker. Doug has a good question for art patron. I did not. Okay, so Claire says, why as a long hauler am I not able to take medicine or supplement without feeling very sick? So this is actually happening in some long haulers, that when they take the medicine, they become sick. That's like a Hirsch like reaction. So do me a favor, if this happens, reduce the dose. Again, not an advice for you, but generally what has been happening is reduce the dose, reduce the frequency, but still continue to take it so that you continuously chip away at the pathology. Joel says UK data on Delta variant being less fatal, around 0.3%, more common symptoms, headache, runny nose, sore throat. Is this Delta becoming similar to cold? Yeah. Yes. And it is going to become cold. It is going to become another human coronavirus. It would tell stories in our throat to its children that our ancestors used to be so bad that they stopped the world. But now we are just sitting here. Rai G says, Dr. Bean, UC Arizona, Shaowen Bao, ringing in ears, neuroinflammation. So can you connect with me either on what is that, Discord or WhatsApp or through Twitter or someplace where I can discuss more with you? Bambi is here. Bambi, hello. UK government and new health secretary are going ahead with 19th July removing all restrictions. Delta is rising, hospital admission and deaths are increasing and still fully opening up. Bambi, look at the data. We were just looking at that a few minutes ago. And this may be that Worldometer is not showing the data correctly. So new cases are, compared to 2,000 per day a few weeks ago, to 26,000, 27, 28, so 12, 14 times more cases. However, I don't see the number of deaths in a similar manner increasing. And we have been saying this, that, hey, days would follow after a few weeks, but this has been going on since April, and it's a good thing, meaning, again, touch wood, we don't want to jinx it. Tell me, Bambi, how are you seeing this extra data? Maybe there is something I'm missing, because you are clearly concerned. Marie Roberts says, my son is a long hauler who experienced severe headache after contacting COVID-19. Is it too late for ivermectin? No. I have seen folks using ivermectin after a year and feeling better within 1 or 2 weeks. Paulette says, hello, Dr. Bean from Little Bean. How is adorable Luffy tonight? I love his voice. He's doing well. He has been sleeping here the whole day. And now just before the lecture, he goes to office. And his office is somewhere else, going and bothering people. To me, it seems like he is right here. Actually, you may be hearing a sound. So he is going to go out to the backyard. So in the backyard, his enemies are the birds. So when they look at him in an angry way, he runs back in. But he's doing good. So Luffy was a very friendly cat today with me. So what happens is, when folks who do the cleaning, when they come in and they have the vacuums on and they're going through the house and they're cleaning, Luffy becomes totally scared. So he finds every reason to just sit next to me during that time. So Bambi says on government dashboard website. So Bambi, I'm going to look into it. I think Worldometer may not be providing correct data, so I'll look into that. 37 deaths in last 24 hours. So it looks like there is a concern. So I'll look into that. Jian says, how come the media and medical community don't advise on healthy diet and lifestyle for best prevention? Instead, they keep open McDonald's and alcohol. There are two ways to look at that. If Nick was here, he would say that, hey, this is actually a very important question, and plant-based diet and healthy diet is very, very important. So I think there are two things here. One is that I don't think medical community really sincerely wants these things to go away. And secondly, there is a demand as well. So these things will not be available if there was no demand. So there is a habit issue as well on us humans part, that we go and we get these things and we eat them. And then medical communities are kind of looking the other way as well, to say, well, it makes us money, so let it happen. Thank you very much, Marie. I hope your son recovers soon. Like button pod, thank you very much. That is in honor of France. Michelle says, thank you for what you do. You're very welcome. Nate says, question, can I take the Benadryl for the MCA? Yes. Zyrtec, Benadryl. You may have to actually switch up some of these, but Zyrtec and Benadryl has been something that people have reported that it works. Claire says, I appreciate your lectures. Thank you so much. As a long hauler, it makes me feel so much better to listen to someone with great knowledge. Thank you, and I hope and I wish that your long haul symptoms go away soon. It's a debilitating situation. Becky says, question, I have a prophylactic prescription of ivermectin doses day 1, 4, 11, and 18. I will be traveling by plane next Wednesday. What day you recommend me to start the day 1 dose? A day before. I would, can you have more ivermectin? I would take it on the day before, day of the travel, and then the other days. If you're going somewhere and you can acquire it there, then maybe, again, not an advice to anyone. If I would be traveling day before, that day of travel, the day I reach somewhere and I am with my friends, families, wherever, and then I can reduce the frequency. Shane says, what are the best things to avoid adverse reaction after vaccine? So for my son, for example, I intend to give him antihistamines or anti-allergies. Then I'm going to give him anti-inflammatories, ivermectin, and hopefully things will be fine. Again, there is no guarantee, but I'm going to try. Omok Lomok says, I take ivermectin when I'm exposed to many people. Same thing here. GG says, does vaccine need ACE2? If no, then kids with less ACE2 can handle low COVID load, but vaccine works inside out, creating high spike load. Does dose isn't changed for kids? COVID safer? What I do not know is the long haul outcome in kids from COVID. I know that there are COVID toes or strokes or cardiac attacks from COVID. What I do not know is long haul. Vaccine has two main things that I feel bad about, the side effects that I feel bad about. One, in younger population, cardiac condition, and second, the long haul. So Louis says, can we have Tess look at the last two meta-analyses of ivermectin printouts? I would request her. I don't think she would be able to do it on the fly, but maybe we can request her and then have her with us once more. Lonnie says, thank you for your honesty. You're very welcome. I find it Strange that somebody needs to be thanked for the honesty. That should be part of our life, and then, um, but you're welcome. Nate says, I'll be praying for you and your son. The numbers are on his side, and so are the cool beans. He's going to be fine. Thank you very much. Please, yeah, prayers are very important. Arun says, any comment on Shaday's enzyme? Arun, you always find something for me that I do not know. I'll have to look into it. Arun is my tester. He tests my limits. Adenovirus or messenger RNA vax for people without spleen. So, um, vaccine spleen has a lot of macrophages, and it's one of the biggest secondary lymphoid organ. But still, vaccine efficacy should not change with no spleen present. I actually think that the spleen's role in clotting might be reduced when it is not present. Colin says it is harder these days to find out who is reporting the truth. The TV won't, and I doubt that WHO does either. You're correct. And that is a very difficult situation. I think about this a lot, that how would you know to trust me or to trust someone else, or WHO or CDC? Who is the right one? That's a very weird. There is so much lies and deceptions and misinformation and spins and rumors and myths and just selfish behaviors, that the situation has become so muddy. Never did I think that the whole planet, 7 billion people, will look at healthcare community to do a good job just for once, for a few months, and we would drop the ball. Pasi says, do you think that it's wise to not adapt vaccine doses when giving it to kids instead of grown-ups? I think they should be adapted. I think that the vaccine dose should be reduced. Um, Question really to answer is this: what is the dose that is sufficient to poke the immune system to respond? And is there in the children, a smaller dose necessary, or okay, a smaller dose okay to still poke the immune response? So vaccine dose is not based on the body weight. Instead, it is based on what is the minimum, ideally, what is the minimum dose necessary to poke immune system enough to create a response. And that creation of a response and the poking of the immune system is going to be similar in children or in adults. Their behaviors could be different. For example, in a person in older age, their immune system may not as vigorously respond as a child's, or with the a child is responding with more innate arm versus more adaptive arm in the older people. But it's not body weight dependent, it's more of a how much dose is necessary. So I think there should have been tests to see what minimum dose is necessary to poke enough antibody response in a child that is sufficient, considering that child themselves can handle the infection much better too. So account that in as well and say, okay, 50% child's own existing immune system is good enough, and we just want another 50% response in there. So something like that should have been done. These are examples of being lazy. They just became lazy to not do these kind of cohort studies. James, thank you very much for the super chat. $22.22 says, Dr. Bean, it says not to take loratadine with ivermectin. Loratadine increases the effect of ivermectin, but that might be a good thing. Yes, that is correct. So if I go to drugs.com and see why not. So loratadine, no interaction were found. Food. So at least they say no interaction. So that means they may not be attacking or using the same enzyme system. Is it the same drug as you're saying? Mark Lamok says China already defeated COVID. I saw a video that they no longer wear masks. The big question is why WHO, CDC, or any government asked China what is the lesson learned and the best practices. Absolutely. So maybe they know an antidote that we don't, and we should ask them that, hey, how did you do it? So $22, I just looked at the drugs.com and they at least say that no interaction. Mazine Movie Makers, thank you very much. Please privately answer question of resource to find doctors who will prescribe ivermectin for my son. I would answer it publicly. So let's do that. If you go to FLCCC, flccc.net, and I'm assuming you are in the US. If not, you can go to existence.com and I'll show you where. So if you go to this site here, in here on ivermectin, how to get ivermectin here. If you see here, these are the doctors who in the US will help get the ivermectin. In addition to that, if you wanted to go and look at international, then this is existence.com. And here they have a list of various countries and the doctors here. So if you see here, India and Afghanistan and Argentina. Unfortunately, I believe Canada and UK are still not here because there are not much doctors can do there. But these are the places to go to get the ivermectin. And then if all else fails, one can get that online as well. Anthony says, will the next flu season be the deciding factor for the efficacy of the vaccine? No, I'm not worried about next. Flu is actually so much lighter this time. And look, flu season and its connection to coronaviruses are just this much, that human coronaviruses, they love to replicate in cooler temperature. That is why they live in the upper part of the respiratory system. And in cold or winter, they increase in number, and that is how they cause common cold. SARS-CoV is different. It can replicate at any of our body temperatures. That is why it can go deeper in the tissues and still replicate there. So it doesn't care for winter time or not. The question is this: will during the winter time, when a person gets flu, will they have their own immunity dropped enough that SARS-CoV-2 can also attack them? I think SARS-CoV-2 does not care for anybody's dropped immunity. It just attacks them and hurts them. P. Lee J says, did you see trial site has new video stating WHO is now going to prohibit use of ivermectin for virus supposedly to save doses for disease? If WHO was a person, I would suspect that they are rolling on the floor and throwing tantrums and crying like a brat to say, why aren't you stopping from ivermectin? Michael says, little kids, thanks for all your great videos. Do you have any thoughts about risks of, say, under 10 children to Delta? Is there any need to protect them? So I do not know about Delta itself. That would be an interesting question to ask or look at the data from Peru and Chile or South Americas to see how children are affected. Generally, children are much better protected, but I do not know about Delta part. Gold Country says, trust is very hard thing to rebuild. We will never again trust. Correct. Even nowadays, for example, today with the Delta, I use WHO to say they are calling it variant of interest. And I was looking at that and saying, what kind of a site am I looking at? What kind of an organization I'm using here? They have lost that, and they would be in that state for a very long time. Lulu, thank you very much for the super sticker. Memory says, my free doctor, it worked for me. So the person who is asking for ivermectin, myfreedoctor.com is another. So Louis Grant says, Claire done. I would also look to Dr. Yo online. So Dr. Yo, either find him online or tweet at him, and he would connect you with Dr. Patterson. So he would also help. These doctors that I showed, they would also help. So help is available. Texas Max says WHO is a vampire ? MSNBC says, I'm confused. Are we to take prophylactically only on days of travel and around people, or day 1, 3, and once a week? So I don't believe that day 1, 3, and once a week is. Okay, so I'll give you my prophylaxis. My prophylaxis is, if somebody is traveling, then take it a day before the day of travel, and then the day when you reach somewhere and you are with them. And if that is the same day of travel, then 2 days. And then go to weekly doses. That is what I suggest to my friends and family or my patients. However, if the ivermectin dose is limited, then 1 day before, so not 1 day, so let's say the flight is 6 in the morning, bad flight time, but anyways, 6 in the morning, then 1 day before or the evening, the night would be the good time. And then after the flight, maybe one more. So 24 hours later, maybe one more. Those who can get this, I ask them to continue it for a week when they're traveling. Madam, yes. So, Madam, yes, I see you after a long time. Hope you're well. Is COVID any variant more transmissible in fog? Thank you in advance. So I did this discussion about a year ago. The behavior of the moisture is twofold. Too much moisture can reduce the transmission by becoming an obstruction, becoming a physical layer that the virus has to cross. Imagine an ocean to swim. Lesser moisture, but sufficient moisture, can actually be a carrier, because it would not let the droplet become lighter, and it would keep giving it enough. It would not allow the evaporation to occur that fast, and the droplet can continue to go faster for some more time. Now, slightly lesser moisture could keep aerosol to be produced, which can stick in the air for 2-3 hours. So higher volume of the moisture in the air actually reduces the travel. Level Drone says, thank you, bless you and your family. Same to you as well. Some interesting comments I've just read. Nancy says, thank you, Dr. Bean. You have provided so much information and support. Such a wonderful human. Thank you very much. We all did it together. We gathered every day, and we just went on for 15 months. And we supported each other. Jamie Lee Zal says, does vaccine work if you don't have side effects? Yes. Yes. Mok Lamok says, Lambda variant are more deadlier with Delta variant. Can ivermectin fight it? So we just looked at Lambda. It does not look deadlier than that. And secondly, yes, ivermectin can still fight it because the mutations are still not on RDRP or 3-chymotrypsin like protease and so on. Ivermectin has a leg up. Mr. J says, my antibody test showed 79 micro per milliliter. So tell me what your test says. What is the threshold level? If the threshold is, let's say 6, then 79 is great. If the threshold is 79, then you are at the threshold. So we have to look at the threshold as well. Mazeen, movie maker, doctor, please tell, what should I be telling? Is there a question? Soren encryption, XOR encryption, exclusive OR from software engineering, I know. Okay, so Dr. Bean, not detecting antibodies after a month post second vaccine dose. Does it mean vaccines don't work? Asking for a kidney transplant patient. No. I have done this discussion many times. Sometimes people's antibody levels go down fast. One, sometimes they respond more with the cytotoxic cells or T helper 1 pathway more. Sometimes they even respond better with the innate arm. So this does not mean that they do not have the response. This simply means their immune system handled it in a different way. This is why T-detect test can also be useful. I see Roller Girl here. Hello. Claire Dunn says, is Prozac a drug that is prescribed to a long hauler? I would not feel comfortable taking that. Please clarify. So Prozac is supposed to be an alternative, a lighter version for alternative for fluvoxamine. I would still prefer fluvoxamine. Roller Girl says hi. Hi, back to you. Prashant says, last time you said that any of these vaccines can be theoretically given subdermally, 0.1 milliliter would invoke an immune response. Covaxin company website says not to be given sub. So the thing is this, the way vaccines are manufactured, I do not remember saying any of these can be given 0.1 milliliter subdermally. I would really love to know where did I say it, because I don't think so. However, somebody I remember had asked me that can a vaccine be built that can be given subdermally, and I said yes. So can these be given subdermally? No, because their components are structured in a way to cause the immune response within the muscle. So if you give them subdermally, they might just get picked up by macrophages there and not much response would occur. Gerard says, thank you, Dr. Bean, for your empathy, compassion, and attention to detail. I've appreciated humanity and real concerns. Thank you very much, and you're very welcome. You are very welcome. So Lies Buster says, my first dose was Pfizer and second dose was Moderna. Any problem in mix and match? So I know the UK study where they had used adenovirus-based vaccine and then messenger RNA. And they said that the second dose created a little more intense side effects, but the immunity was developed. I had been talking about it for a very long time as well, that in theory, from a mechanism point of view, immunity should develop because you're exposing a virus, same components of the virus to the immune system. Immune system doesn't care where did you bring the spike protein from? Was that generated by Moderna or Pfizer or something else? So ideally, you should be fine. Angry macrophages are a problem, yes. MSNBC, if a person doesn't have contact outside household, exercise outside in neighborhood, not going to inside stores, would they take ivermectin weekly continuously or less? No, no need for weekly continuously. For example, when I am not exposed a lot outside, I don't take ivermectin. But I am vaccinated as well. But let's say if I was not vaccinated and I'm mostly at home and I do not have much contact outside, then I don't need ivermectin that regularly. Thank you very much, Texas. So Dante says, hello, Dr. Bean. Ivermectin once a week for sure. How is my country, Peru, doing so far? Gracias. So let's look at it. Peru, I saw the numbers today when I was reading up for Lambda, and it seemed like the country was now recovering. So if I go to Worldometer and go to Peru. So in my language, we call it Peru. And so I used to call it Peru the first time I did this. And it is funny, the turkey, the bird turkey, every country calls it with other countries' name. For example, here we call it a turkey. In my country, a turkey is called a piru, that it's a bird from Peru. And then it is also called Hindi, that is a bird from India. So turkey is a weird bird that it always has some other country's name applied to it. So here, daily new cases reduced compared to where they were 13,000, 10,000, and now 3,000, 2,000, and 1,500, reducing a lot. And if you see, the death rate is also dropping. So in my opinion, Peru is actually doing very good. Jesse Swan says, do you think Pfizer is really 67% effective against Delta? It was 88% a week ago. How is that possible? Very simple. Actually, these things should not actually cause a lot of concern, again, when they said the first dose. So what happens is this. Let's say we have a virus that is faster faster to cause infection. That means if this is a cell and the cell has ACE2 here, and there are a bunch of viruses sitting here, a virus that has a better affinity for ACE2 will bind faster and get into the cell and cause infection, come out and then bind to the next cells and so on. That means if I get let's say I'm vaccinated, I have the immune system protection, but my immune system is going to wake up anywhere from 10 hours, usually 24 to 48 hours. It takes that much time for adaptive arm cells, B cells and T cells to start. So they wake up, they increase in number, they become active, and then they start attacking. Now, if a virus is faster, then within this time frame, virus might actually cause a lot of infection and cause lots of destruction and so cause symptoms. But immune system can take care of it. Now, imagine if the virus became so bad, so fast, that it would kill the person before immune system could wake up and respond. That means kill the person within 24 hours. Then we would have a true virus escape, which it doesn't really is escape from the immunity. It doesn't care that there is an immune system or not. It just escapes because of the speed with which it would cause destruction. XOR encryption says massive bonus point for knowing XOR meaning you rock. So I have done, when I started software engineering, I was 13 years old. Of course, that was not engineering at that time. I was 13-year old, and my first computer was Z80. Hey, Luffy. And Z80 in those days did not have a compiler for basic language. There was no basic language at that time. So it used to come with assembly compiler or interpreter. So all I had was to work with assembly. So I worked with Z80's assembly, then 6502 or Apple IIe compatibles, they arrived. Then I learned their assembly. Then 8088 and XTs, or before XT, 8086 came in. So I learned their assembly, then XT's assembly, then AT computer, 286s and onwards, and then Pentiums. So if you see here, top, I have, let me just quickly show you. You would like this as well. So here in my engineering books, I have the Intel 32 Intel architecture. So the whole Pentium processor architecture manual set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. I have them and I read them and I have been using them. So I'm very intimately aware of the assembly language work. That's how I started engineering. Denise says, holy moly, you had a computer in Pakistan all the way back then. Yes, not one. Actually, I had Z80 and I finished that. Actually, before even Z80, when I said to my parents I needed a computer, and as I said that I come from a broken family, so not a very rich family or not very inclined to get me things because I was with relatives. So the first one was Casio PB600. Casio PB600. So if I show you that one, it was actually, I remember I said, I want a computer. They said, we can't buy you a computer. And I said, okay, I'm going to build one. And I started building a computer from wood, which was just crazy, but I thought I can build one. So then they said, fine, we'll get you a computer. And we ourselves did not know what is a computer. So this is the one that I got, this one. This one. This was my first computer. And I went back to my parents in a week or so and I said, I finished it. They said, how could you finish a computer? I said, I am done with the language and I understand it and I'm done with this. And it had this 2-line display. So then they bought me this Z80. It was called Sinclair Spectrum. I still remember. So they bought me this one. I still remember. I still have cassettes for this guy. This one. And so $43 now. So I had the Sinclair Spectrum and I started doing the programming with assembly for this one. And it was a fun computer. It had graphic and text mode that were combined in one. So those who are engineers, they know that most of the computers handle graphic mode and text mode separately. So you have to switch them into one mode or the other to draw graphics or not. Although nowadays computers all operate in graphic mode and they generate text as in graphics. But anyways, this was a fun computer. It had graphics and text together. And then after this, I got 6502 processor computer. So that was an Apple compatible computer. So Apple IIe. So there was a computer, I don't know, this one. These guys, I remember. This one. So then I got this computer. And I remember my discs used to go bad all the time. Then I got XT. So XT computer. These guys, yes. So I got the XT, and then in the XT there was VGA monitor, then super VGA monitor, then enhanced VGA monitors, and so on. So Then I went to Pentium, and I just love computers. James Nguyen says, I had a 133 hertz. Yes. So these were that way. Doug says, I zapped floppies all the time. Yes. So my problem used to be that the cassettes used to get destroyed all the time. And so I still remember I would put the cassette on with the Z80 and then pray that it would load. And it would take like 30 minutes to load, and then I'll play some game or do something. So XR says my first was Commodore. Yes, 128. So I had 6502. I used to think about Commodore 128. So Denise says I learned basic coding on XT. So I started basic language from 6502. On Z80 it was all assembly. Then 6502 I had, I believe, basic. Then on XT and others, then C and C++, I fell in love with C and assembly. Gerald says, I used the slide rule initially, Dr. Bean. Yes, so Gerard, sorry. So yes, I still love those punch cards as well. These were so much fun. Closet Picker says, Doc is a geek. I love software engineering and computer programming. Yes, James says, do you remember 200 hertz was a benchmark? Yes, yes. So Casey says, would you be able to do a lecture on Sinovac? So Casey, I have done a lecture on Sinopharm. That is also an inactivated virus vaccine. So please look it up, and if needed, then I can do a Sinovac as well. Eileen says, you were equivalent of Dell building your own. Yes, so I was. So how did I want to have a computer was that my mother's sister was in UK. She used to live in Southampton. And so she came to visit us, and with her three sons, my cousins. And when they were there, they would continue to talk about computers. And I'll ask them, what is a computer? And they'll say, well, a computer has a keyboard. And I had no idea what a keyboard is. And then they would say there's a screen, and on the screen there are letters that display when you press a key. And so this got stuck in my head, that you press a key and the letter would appear. So I wanted to create a wooden block with A, B, C, and then you press A somewhere and a motor would bring A on the screen. It was just crazy. And I just sat down starting to build the computer. And when my parents or my adopted parents saw me going nuts, they said, fine, we'll buy you. And then this is what happened. Jelly Bean says, printf, yeah, string, hi, Dr. Bean. So then I'll say this. So printf, the first time when I wrote a C program, I had no clue how to write a correct C program. So the standard IO library, and then adding of the void, main void, or something void, and then the brackets. So I still remember I spent half a day trying to figure out how to just write this much of hello world. Okay, so Kelly says you were industrious even back then. So that was my way of escaping, because the family environments were different. So it was the best thing for me to just sit down at the computer and spend my time there. Cool. So with this little computer, so even now, all of these books over there, C++, ASP.NET, web workshops, I have been doing a lot of PCI compliance work for some companies. So memory management. I don't know if some of you know this, that I have actually written my own compilers as well. So in some of my previous companies, my languages that I invented and the compilers that I wrote are still running there as a scripting engine with their C programs. So with this, let's break for today. Melody says, this pandemic has at least been good for one thing. We have gotten to know a fascinating, talented, caring man. Thank you. Thank you very much. We came together and we protected each other. So let's stop for today. Tomorrow is morning 9 a.m. Pacific time. We will have Dr. Laurie with us. Tomorrow evening, if my son was okay, then I will be here with you. If not, then I'll see if we can do a chit chat or maybe skip. So I will let you know. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if you would like to support this work, there are links in the description to buy me a coffee or support via PayPal or be a patron. Thank you, and I would see you tomorrow morning. Bye bye.